Welcome to The Hype Within, exploring journeys of authentic leadership and growth. On the show, tech leaders will share their stories of developing their leadership skills and challenges they faced along the way. You'll learn about their approaches to self-reflection and personal growth, and how they've been able to build a foundation of authenticity that has propelled them to success. I'm your host, Hana Jacover, B2B marketing leader turned leadership and executive coach. Are you ready to get hyped up? Let's dive in. Hey leaders, welcome back. I am here today with strategic talent and learning leader, Benicia Stein. And Benicia is the global leader of enterprise leadership development at VMware. And Benicia, I love in your bio in your LinkedIn, because I always ask people about their purpose. So I love that you had your purpose in there. And her purpose is to ignite excellence in leadership at all levels. And she's also spent time at Columbia Sportswear as well as in the health industry. And we are both in Portland, which I learned today. And I'm so excited about making that connection. Welcome, Benicia.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me, Hannah. Yes, I am in the Portland, Oregon area, but my work is truly global in nature. What brings me here today is really that passion for leadership development. And I did put that in my LinkedIn blurb, so thanks for checking that out. Igniting leadership at all different levels is important, I think, because leadership isn't just set for one population. I think it really is shared amongst all of us, but then those leaders that find themselves in those specific people leadership positions, you're held to a much higher standard. And so I just want to make sure leadership is elevated and acted on in the right way for the right impact within the world. So wherever I can make that happen, that's where I go and do my work.
I love it. Very powerful. And I love the leaning into just the broadening of what leadership looks like. And it's different. It's so different. It's like a spectrum, you know. It can be many, many different things in different roles and titles and orgs and families and communities. Like, we could go on forever about that. Well, I would love if we could start out by you just giving us a little bit of an intro about yourself and maybe your journey. You know, how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. Thinking about telling my story in a succinct way always brings me anxiety for some reason. So this is still a work in progress. I just want to put that out there up front. But where it all started for me was first realizing my just natural abilities and talents growing up, and what I tended to lean towards when it came to choosing like the projects and activities and things that I engage in. And I learned from a very young age that I was okay getting up in front of crowds and talking to them, talking about concepts, gaining diverse perspectives. Like, that just came naturally to me. I'm a curious person. So in college, I came across something called speech communications. And I remember when I told my parents, I'm going to actually get a degree in speech, they're like, what? You can do that? And what will you be doing with this degree? And I was like, honestly, there are so many people out there that are so nervous to share their thoughts and ideas. And if I could help cultivate that presence and a confidence within myself and others, I think I could monetize that. So within college, I came across a course on training and development and learned some of the basics. And I thought, okay, I could get into it this way, whatever this thing is that I'm supposed to be doing. And then I worked my way from that degree to then finding specific instances within business where I could go and actually cultivate culture, behaviors, the right type of environment. And so I started in training and development in the banking industry. And from there went into healthcare, dabbled around in org development, org design, anything around team dynamics, and then kept going into my career, focusing on learning experience. So at the end of the day, like, you find me as an internal consultant with big global companies. I don't know if that's where I'll stay for my entire career, but up to this point, I have been the person really responsible for cultivating leadership within big global companies. And I like it. It fits my natural skill set, abilities and passion. And a lot of people ask, like, how do you break into what you do? Because it's like you get to do some cool work. And it's like, it's a mix of identifying the need within business, having the right skill set to then bring people together to a table, and then enough like inspiration and activation to get people to do things differently. So at the end of the day, it's all human effectiveness is what I'm working on. And I just got really, I think, lucky, but then also I was strategic in terms of what I went after and what I learned in my career. So I can honestly say I'm probably like more stooped a word people use anymore. I don't know. Sometimes I use words that like I don't know where that came from. I don't use that very often. I guess I'm trying to sound really intelligent right now. Yeah, it's sometimes I lucked out, and other times I was super strategic about I want to learn, let's say, the financial aspect of how a business works, and I just go after it. I find the people that know it. I get into the projects where I can get hands-on, and I just go for it. But I know that's my learning style too.
Part of it's luck, but part of it's just like you're doing the thing. You see the vision and you're going after it, like you said. I also love how in your journey, because I think that this is really difficult for a lot of people to think about, is that you tapped into what do I love doing? What did I love doing when I was younger? What was I good at? What's something that I can bring to this community? And I always work through that process with people when we're doing coaching, when they're at a point where maybe it's a transition and it's tapping back into that. Well, what did you like to do? What kinds of things were you really good at? What were you drawn to when you were younger? So I love that story and your journey and the connection to that. If you were to bucket or allocate, right, X% of my time I'm doing this, X% of my time I'm doing this, what does that look like in your role?
So 80% of the time, I am identifying business need, talking directly with business leaders, talking with employees, finding out what's working and what's not, but more so trying to understand what's happening in the marketplace. Like internally right now, I'm working in such an interesting situation where it's been a full year since we had it announced that another larger hardware company may potentially acquire us. I've never sat within a year's period of time not knowing what's going to happen with the workforce, not knowing who will stay, who will go. So it's basically trying to read the landscape and then take what you're hearing in terms of needs and pairing them up with solutions. But I don't like to just put on training events to put on training events. My jam is really about how to make it apply to the real world. But first, you got to motivate, inspire, and teach people the how to. So I really do find the tech industry to be really cool and like quickly ready to get agile with me to go there. Other organizations I've worked for, let's say for a healthcare, that change curve and that timeline trajectory is just much longer.
Yeah, the innovation, like we're just always on the cusp of that. Fascinating. Okay, so speaking of landscape, I'm curious, just because you've been so entrenched in that global leadership development scene for a while, how would you characterize the current state of leadership development?
So leadership development is considered I think it was a $12 billion plus dollar industry. Like that was one of the future of skills reports that came out from LinkedIn Learning last year. I mean, somewhere in the billions. So leadership matters. If it didn't matter, we wouldn't have customers, we wouldn't have business asking for it. Leadership development today. So I actually call it leadership effectiveness. So if we're talking about from an individual standpoint or within a business, it's how effective you are at being a leader in today's time. And then also thinking future forward, okay, what needs to happen to move this business forward? The development piece of it all, the industry side of it, I see it's gotten good at offering a lot of content and a lot of stuff, but still the time to skill to do for individuals or teams or business, still there's too much of a lag time because business looks at us internally and they think, okay, develop our leaders to the level we need them to be. And we say, what level do you need them to be at? What do you mean? They say, here's what I think I mean. And then you have to go, figure it out. But what am I trying to say? Leadership development is still leadership development. It has not been figured out from the stance of it's not perfect, which is great because I still have a role, but the effectiveness of leaders has to get better. And we do see that in some industries. And I think there's just really this need to personalize it for people. Of course, business needs great leaders so we can have great teams to create great product that keeps selling, and we make money. I mean, that's what it is. Individually, you care about making money, but you also care about your career. You care about how you show up. I think it's the business need plus the personal need and intertwining this together and getting people to a place with leadership effectiveness where it's individualized, but it's also done in community. So a lot of opportunity, and it's not perfected by any stretch of the imagination. And leadership will always be evolving. So I think it's cool. It's dynamic.
You're speaking my language. I sit in the gap between personal growth and personal development as well as professional development, because we're moving into a time where we're acknowledging our wholeness, and that personal side of it is very important. And I think such a requirement in order to then bring that and be effective in a community sense.
You got it.
Okay, so diving back in, how have things changed when it comes to leadership development? What are you seeing that's different now? I hear there's this more human-centric aspect that you're talking about, but what else, especially from the perspective of working with like global brands?
Well, what expectations are out there working for a global brand that's not usually said or cultivated is cultural awareness. Some companies will actually have some training on it, others will not. At the end of the day, whether your company has it or not, as a leader, I always recommend you go and find content on just how the world does business. Start with international business, dive into what are the different nuances in different regions. It really has become more holistic, and understanding someone else's environment, situation, it's just that much more important when it comes to developing strong leadership, because it has to be done in a way that it resonates with the person. And if you don't know them, how the heck are you creating any kind of experience that's truly going to transform them? So we also see development, but I think in the ways of how do I transform someone's capabilities into then delivering at that level of expectation. And it comes back to getting clear. So I think what we have noticed is that there's more clarity in terms of what we mean by leadership. And that means leading more by influence, inspiration, authenticity, like you talk about, versus that power play type of move. And that's something that I also, when I'll be asked by people that want to become leaders or even engage in the line of work that I do, it's all about influence. It really is. It's about how you connect and talk and collaborate with others. That's where the world is and will continue to head in that direction. And those that lead with ego, power plays, insecurity, you're just not going to last long in the new world. I just do not see that. When I first entered into my career, that was all over the place. Now today, not so much. You're not seen as a strong person if you're not, but a strong leader, not person, but strong leader if you're not able to like tap into your emotions and others and influence in the right way.
Yes, the evolution, I think, has been pretty drastic, but also very positive. You know, I think that moving into that like more human centric, right? We're humans. Why do we pretend not to be humans at work? It's so silly. And yeah, I think that the old way of leadership that many were taught, it just does not work, because we're learning too much about what it means to be human. And at the core of that, as you said, is that connection, the relationships, the influence, the communication, the things that make us uniquely human. And yeah, the only way to approach that effectively is by showing up in a way that drops all of that other stuff, drops the ego, drops the power plays like you talked about, and just shows up very authentically.
Yeah, but I was raised in business. I don't know about you, Hana, but I was raised in business by those that did have to put on that mask and did have to put on that that polish to show up in a certain way, especially as a woman in business. Like I remember all of those situations. I remember in my early 20s walking into a room ready to facilitate an executive session, met with the looks like, who are you, little girl, and what do you have to say? So it took time to really cultivate my own leadership. It's still being developed to this day, but my confidence has shot up. But I also somewhere in like 2011 decided, why am I trying to emulate someone else? Like I might like the way a leader, presents information or navigates their team through a reorg, let's say, but it doesn't mean that I have to completely be that person or that type of leader. Leadership is just leadership. It's you showing up, do the best you can within the situation, bringing your full self, but also realizing the strengths of others. So I don't really like to fully define it either. Like I do from an organizational standpoint, like what are your expectations? But I don't like to have to define, I am a strategic leader and that's all I am. No, I'm a leader. I can pull and play and do different behaviors and strategies whenever I need to.
Yeah, being adaptable. We have similar stories. I remember that too, walking into a room of all white male leaders, executives that are maybe like 10 years my senior, 20 years my senior even, and I'm facilitating a workshop with them. And same thing, same feeling of what? Are you the assistant? Who are you? And I mean, thankfully, I just had like so many amazing mentors and sponsors that propped me up. But I would spend hours scripting, trying to and reviewing video of, okay, how did the women before me do this? And I need to do it just like they did it in order to command the room and have that executive presence. And it sounds like we went through very similar journeys, stepping into your power and authenticity and finding your own voice, which I think is really, really crucial for women in particular.
Heck yes. And I feel so proud that I have never personally tried to mold someone in my image. I just try to mold them for their own image, what they're about, what they can offer, versus trying to make them the person or the thing I think they ought to be. I think that's maybe what people thought career development and mentoring was back in the day, or at least that's been my experience. No, I'm just going to disappoint you because I'm going to do it my way anyways. But I want to do it in the best way possible in my way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So I feel like people can probably read between the lines based on looking at the past and looking at how we've evolved. But what would you say are some unique challenges that are facing leadership development today?
Not AI. I'm going to say this straight up. A lot of people are talking about AI right now. I only think it'll help with leadership development and effectiveness going forward because it'll give us just-in-time tips, tricks. I mean, we're already doing that with chatbots and different things. AI can quickly, if I have a situation I have to work through, like giving a tough performance review, I can just go in there and ask it questions. It can respond back to me, it can give me ideas. So I think as a tool, that's super cool. The challenges of today for people to actually taking it seriously. We have positions like mine internal to companies and positions like yours that are external to a company because they're needed, because transformation of a person and their behaviors, that's a different kind of work that not a whole bunch of people deeply understand. The people that deeply understand it have taken time to actually learn it and go deep. So I love my PhDs out there, all my research nerds. Like I know that that's not my skill set, but I work so well with those individuals because they really have a pulse on what's needed in terms of how leaders show up. So it's the empathy that you're showing, the connection that you're having, the inclusive decisions you're either making or not making. But business also looks at things from the lens of, I need people upskilled really quick, and your transformation tends to take a long time. So do something about that. I think the challenge is translating the deep knowledge and know-how into actual business application and then results. Okay, so just take this. At the end of the day, my bosses will look at me and say, whatever big enterprise-wide training initiatives that you put into play, how did that increase business decision-making amongst my leaders? How did it increase employee engagement? Did it increase productivity in any way? Did we retain more people? Like I have to prove impact. So I think it's the solutions that provide impact quickly. That's a huge challenge
Mm.
because we spend a lot of time designing, getting to know our customer, but from the point of you get it to when they need it to when you need to provide results, there's something with that timing just is not working out right now.
That's really interesting. Our current model of measuring success and KPIs, it doesn't always apply to humans and like the
Yeah.
development of
Yeah.
humans, especially because it's such a unique journey. Everybody is at a different space when it comes to their own adult development, right? And how they see the world. And then you have all of these layered in experiences and things that people see through their own lens, and nobody else knows what that looks like except them. So, getting somebody to be more effective as a leader, for one person, it could take a month. For another person, it could take 10 years. But going through that process is very personal. It's a very personal journey, and yeah, measuring that is so hard. And especially when we say, well, if you can't measure it, then we're not going to support it. We're not going to, the dollars won't be there. And yeah, that is a huge, huge challenge. I wonder how we solve that.
I've done some of that with great partners, especially executive coaches. So I personally do not have that skill set, but I know a lot of people that do. And when you can really hone that ability to work with someone and open them up and help them see, that's amazing. So I think coaching does one thing where it goes along the journey with the person based on their timeline, which I think is really helpful. We can't really scale anything else like that unless it is more one-to-one. So I think it's just that, yeah, it's the scaling and then it's the how we measure success as well. And if you think about it from an organizational standpoint, what people are responsible to achieve. So if I've got a list of OKRs and I'm told by my boss and my boss's boss that hitting these OKRs is what I'm responsible for this year, I could do everything else to make these OKRs happen. But at the end of the day, all they're really caring is that I hit that OKR. I want them to care from a corporate standpoint, a company standpoint, that I actually engaged my employees. So what is my measure for employee engagement? They actually retained a good chunk. What does that look like? I think companies can help by explaining expectations and then holding measurements to those expectations, but not just wrapping everything up in an OKR because those important behaviors get lost.
What else do you think organizations, particularly global brands, can be doing to both implement and improve leadership effectiveness?
I think simulations are so cool, like really good simulations. So to increase a candidate pool and get people to a place where they're ready to dive in, I almost think that you need the ability to just like get in there and try it out in a safe place. And that's hard to create. But if that was an opportunity, I think you'd have a lot more people ready to take on the next whatever thing it is. I would have said like a few years ago, having a strong, like aspiring manager pipeline. And I still think that's true, but you have to have the positions ready for those people and they're ready for them. That's what makes talent management, OD, and leadership development so amazing and so difficult. It's because if organizations were to focus on different populations of their workforce, and we ourselves as a member of the workforce identify where we're at within career. So let's say I'm highly skilled and have many years of experience in what I'm currently doing. But then we know that today, a lot of times people say, oh, your career is like a ladder. You can go to the side, you can go up, you can go here, there, and everywhere. It's about transferable skill. Well, if that's the case, then I need to tell you what also I might be interested in. And you need to tell me from an organizational standpoint what I need to know to get there. And then I need to go and close the gap. But what organizations are doing today is creating these talent marketplaces, which essentially do what I just said. But the next step of this is to really make sure the the actual engagements of like, I know they call it like a shadow engagement or like a observation or a job shadow. We call it at VMware, we call it our take program. Take
Hmm.
one is take an outside offering or internal offering, just focused on skill development. So that could be anything from you taking a VMware sponsored workshop on, let's say, managing difficult conversations. And a take two would be where you then go and share that with others and scale them up, encourage them to go through the same like training event. And then a take three is when you actually get to go on for like 3 to 6 months and work in someone else's department for that experience. I think it's having accessibility to the experiences and allowing people to get after those that organizations could really do to increase leadership effectiveness. Because you can get so much from learning and talking and training, but nothing outdoes actually.
I think it's the Center for Creative Leadership. They use that 70-20-10, where 70% of leadership development is experience and challenging projects and actually doing the thing. And I think that's a great place for us to move, is if we could create those simulations and those experiences for people. I do think that that is a really powerful learning tool. What about current and aspiring leaders? So more on the individual side, what can they be doing to enhance their leadership skills?
Anyone who I've ever interviewed or talked to that's interested in working their way up in leadership or even leadership development, it's finding a need within your current organization, no matter what level you work at, and bringing people together to create a solution. It's if you as a leader can work on, again, activating ideas together with others and collaborating and blending in other ideas, you'll find that you're helping facilitate, like even if it's an ad hoc team that's come together, but you are facilitating towards an outcome. And that takes communication skill, that takes being in tune with how people are performing, how they're showing up. There's those that it gives you the team dynamic kind of thing. And you don't have to have the formal title today, but anytime I interview anyone that's interested in a upper leader position, even if it's a first time management position, I want to know, what have you done in your current roles that you've had, even if you didn't have the leader sticker on your badge, that you have done to lead? So what have you done to influence others, activate ideas, and collaborate and bring in multiple perspectives? That is gold.
Yeah, be able to have that story and tell that story. And when we're thinking about moving from that individual contributor or even manager to director, director to VP level, we're thinking so tactical, so tactical. And it's that shift of the strategic thinking and thinking about, okay, what are the different organizational networks at play? Like not even understanding my own influence, but the influence of others and how that plays out. And then bringing that all together, like you say. So I feel like it is a very intentional shift that moves from doing tactics to that very strategic foresight collaboration mode.
You got it. And doesn't matter what level that you're at with leadership, that's the flip.
Mm-hmm.
Less tactical, more doing together and thinking about how to reach an outcome strategically, but also by creating the right environment.
Yeah.
It's really about facilitating.
Facilitating. Yes, that's a good word for it. I want to talk a little bit about organizational development and the interplay with leadership. How do you think successful leadership development contributes to the overall organizational development?
When you have leaders that are inclusive, are focused on results, but it's that good blend of people and business, then you have such a healthy organization and presence of psychological safety, where you have more people taking risks. You have more people failing fast, learning, and then doing something wildly cool that nobody thought of before. So innovation, like you can't have it, I don't think, if you don't have great safety in terms of how your environment has been shaped by leaders. So the organization can only benefit from, I think, collectiveness of its leaders actually saying that we care about, and not saying that companies wouldn't say this, but like truly acting on they care and support employees. A lot of times I hear companies speak to it, but then you don't hear it acted or you don't see it acted on. And there comes the misalignment of why an employee could be engaging in a company different than a leader just because they're not seeing it, but people walk the walk. So organizational development, really, I think of that as the core culture of an organization, and leaders help set the tone for that. They always do. And whether you're a leader with the actual sticker that says people leader, or you're a leader because you're showing up as one, you are developing the org. Each and every day it gets molded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it goes back to who are you hiring? Do their individual mindsets and messages and the way that they're going to lead their team, does that roll up and align with that collective organizational vision?
It's then who owns that collective organizational vision of what is expected of the people within it. And I think it's the full organization. For the longest time, I saw where HR thought they owned it. They own culture. The core senior leadership team thought they owned culture. The employees thought they did. At the end of the day, we all do, but do we all have an equal say in it? No.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece. And I have to say, like working for the company that I work for today, I have never yet seen a company, and I can't take any credit of this myself at all, because this is literally day 4 of my being on the job about a year and a half ago. These, like, the employees at VMware are obsessed with the values. I couldn't even tell you what the values were a few companies ago, or when I asked people what are our collective values. These folks actually know them and make it a purpose of living them because it was created by the employees. The values were created by the employees and supported by everyone from there. So there's no, we all own it. Now, if we have to switch it up, then it probably starts with our senior leadership team, and then they need to gather in people to determine like how this will adapt. But wow, I've never seen people be such values focused. It's so cool to see.
That is really cool. That's really, it's unique, I think, because it's hard to find that organization where it's real. You see the values and the core values on the website, but then you actually experience it. And I was lucky enough to experience that at a startup that I worked at. And it really was like they created the values in terms of what does the team want? What do we as individuals want as we're working together to fulfill this purpose that this product, hopefully will fulfill. And then just finding those people that they are asking the questions almost in the interview process to understand, do I align with these values? Is this me? Is that I'm shopping as much as like the person interviewing like needs me, but I need to make sure that this is the right place for me. So being able to suss out those questions that tells me they are looking to be somewhere that is aligned to their values. And how do they see that? How do they experience that?
Yeah, you got it. So companies that do it really well, like that's what attracted me to VMware. I reviewed those. They asked me questions, made sure that I had similar values, that I could help bring it to life. I mean, what a special company. And it's not like we can't do that inside of companies because there's cultures within cultures within cultures. And so for my direct team, I absolutely do involve them in making the meaning of what are we doing? What is our purpose? Because they have to own it. They have to feel it, or I'm not going to get the best work out of them or me. So it's all the way from the top of the organization all the way down to your like home base.
And it's true what they say about leading by example as well.
Yeah. I was so like, I still don't know how to feel about this, but I had one of my team members say that she updated one of our workshops based on how she has seen me lead over the past year and could throw in different examples of how to respond with empathy and really to show up as that inclusive leader. And I thought that was so cool. Not that I'm trying to make everybody a me out there. I just wanted to be able to demonstrate that leadership isn't easy. It just isn't. Everybody has a different idea of what excellent leadership is. That's why, as much as possible, from an organizational level, if they, meaning the leadership team with the employees, can define it together, cool, but don't over define it, because it's always going to evolve, and it's okay for you to try out new and different things as business and life progresses. So it's like, let's not over engineer it, but let's consider it very important, and to give the time and attention to not only social learning that's needed to upskill many people, but then individual learning that's needed for transformation. So it's a mix. Like, I don't even prescribe to the whole do you build or buy when you're building out a leadership portfolio. I don't want those constraints. I said whatever meets the needs.
I think that's a fantastic way to look at it, because you can have a map, right? But once you get in there, once you get down onto that terrain, there's going to be things that change. There's going to be things that don't match the map because of environmental forces or other external forces, and just understanding that the map is not always going to match the terrain, and you have to be adaptable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I try not to get too wrapped up in, like, even if I come into a situation where the team's kind of falling apart for whatever reasons, maybe they had not such a strong leader before, maybe there's been a recent something that's happened, plug and play whatever you'd like. So it's some kind of fire. I try not to, like, before, earlier in my career, I get worked up about it. And I'm like, I just need to fix this really quick. Nowadays, very interesting. It's not, let's see what happens.
I've noticed that with my own career as well, like the fire drills. It's not that I don't care about the fire drills, but when I was working for a lot of like corporate organizations, it was like the stress of it, the stress of something happening. You got to go in and fix it right away. And that vibe is not conducive for effective leadership either. And so sitting back and just observing and asking questions, just being really curious about the situation. Oh my gosh, stepping into that has served me so well in my life.
Good. Yes. And it takes, well, probably for you like me, it took just experience after experience to get it. So if there's anyone listening that can be like, don't sweat the fires. They will always be there. And a lot of times, 50% of the time, they're going to become a big nothing burger at the end. It just helps you not sweat it. But also today, people expect much more calm, curious, planful leadership. That if you're out there spazzing out from what, any fire coming, you're not role modeling what they need.
No. I had a leader where that was the norm. Polyvagal theory is very, very real. If you're not regulated as a leader, that is then going to be how your team moves through life. And it can cause so much harm that we don't even realize. And I think just even learning about things like that allows us to understand the importance of being calm, being curious, staying regulated. So underrated.
Yeah. I will vow this. I do not want to traumatize any employees. I only want to collaborate really well with my team members and help elevate them to their next level. And I have also been traumatized in business. That could be a topic for another conversation even, and just how I've come out of that. But yeah, how you role model, how you show up impacts people to the core. And many people don't realize how important it is.
Yeah. Well, we started by looking at sort of the landscape of leadership, where we've been, what it looks like now. What are your thoughts on the future of leadership? We see all these innovations happening. We know AI is probably more helpful than hurtful in terms of leadership, but what else would you say the future of leadership looks like?
I think the future of leadership looks like including more perspectives and people into the room, sharing it. I really do think with the younger generation and how they process things and how they do, we need to get really, really good at understanding them. Because I see we do that every 5 years or something. At least our industry will pick apart, okay, what is Gen Z thinking? And then for the longest time, millennials got crap. And then like, where was Gen X ever in that discussion, And then the boomers. So don't stereotype, just appreciate and blend in the different expectations and behaviors. And I haven't once ever led a team without a huge range of age groups. And I like it that way. I remember when I used to be like the young, most technologically advanced, wild thinker. And no, I'm not. But I just think that, yeah, the full mix of it all, the truly inclusive leadership comes from, I think, involving more people and adapting some of their ways and ideas into it. So I think it's just going to continue to be a thing. The future of leadership development, it just is. Mm-hmm. I personally wish that leadership development was seen as a business critical function versus a nice to have thing. So that I'll say that, but I'm not so optimistic that that's going to change in the future unless we make it really apparent that, hey, if you want your leaders to retain more high performing talent, then you have to give them a clear way to identify that talent and then actually reward them for moving that talent around. You have to put the measures and metrics in play to help them feel incentivized to do these things differently. So business and leadership need to be much more aligned in a practical way.
Yes, yeah, agreed. And I think too, we'll see a change with some of this generational shift also just based on what's going on in the world today. Like going back to your point around just cultural competency, whatever generation you're part of, being competent in what's going on culturally around us at every level is so helpful and allows you to adapt, allows you to collaborate, allows you to bring in those ideas of other people and think about, well, how do we connect these very important points that younger generations are making around business and leadership, and how do we make that a reality? Well, Benicia, this has been so lovely. I cannot wait to continue to connect with you because I feel like we have lots to talk about. But is there any final advice that you would offer to leaders and organizations that are looking to enhance their leadership effectiveness?
Try to find, if it's personally or organizationally, the one place, if you put at least 80% of your effort into, it's going to yield you the right results. So, for example, there's a ton of initiatives that happen within a business sense and a ton of changes that happen from a personal, individual career sense. But I guess where my mind is going, it's if you know, for example, the number one thing that matters to your employee base is their career development, then maybe having a solution or investment focused on their career development to keep them internally. Don't just think about it. If you have to stop other things and get that going first, do what your people care about and what the business needs first and foremost, and then let the things fall in priority order. Because so many times we'll do things because the top VP of this function thinks it's an important thing to do, or because X manager decided that this is just what they were going to do one day. It's that prioritize, be intentional, prioritize what's going to get you the biggest return.
Great advice. Thank you. All right. Well, I appreciate you and the conversation and the wisdom that you brought to today's interview. And I can't wait to chat again, and cheers to the future of leadership.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Cheers with my Diet Coke.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope you walk away with something empowering that you can take into your own leadership journey. Are you a high-performing executive looking to take your career to the next level? Or maybe you're an emerging leader who wants to develop the skills you need to advance in your role and show up authentically. Or maybe you're experiencing burnout and struggling to find a better work-life balance. Whatever your situation is, one-on-one coaching can help you achieve your personal and professional goals. If you're interested in experiencing the power of coaching for yourself, head on over to hypehousecoaching.com/start coaching now, where you can set up a one-on-one leadership and executive coaching intro session for free. Remember, the only hype that really matters is the hype within.